Welcome to the Technology Education News Podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Cutter. Today we're here to talk about a new product that's an educational tool to help students learn about computer networks. It's called LabHUB Network Emulator. And I'm here with Pierre Askmo, the founder of DTI Publishing, and also with Greg Tomsho, who's longtime educator in technology and also a publisher of many textbooks. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about you guys. What is DTI Publishing?
Well, we are an ed tech company. When we started it 20 years ago or so, ed tech was not so much in the language, but now it is, and we're square in the middle of that. So we try to leverage the computing technology to help the learning experience for students, to enhance the learning experience for students. And so we've done, over the years, some different products, some in test prep, but a lot also of virtual labs. And the network emulator is actually a feature in a larger platform that's called LabHUB. We've been developing that only the last couple of years. It's an adaptation it's a growth of another product that became this LabHUB platform that we are now adding the network emulator to.
Okay. Greg, what about you? Tell us about yourself.
All right, so I have been an educator for about 25 years and also an author of networking and operating system textbooks for Cengage. And I came across this product in talking to Pierre on some other ventures that he has, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, good. Well, why don't we tell us a little more about what is LabHUB Network Emulator?
So it's a product. There is out there on the market today. You have really advanced network emulators that are used by computing engineers to sort of design real-life networks. And they use this as an easy way to see what is the outcome if I configure this way rather than this other or whatever. It's really advanced tools. It's being used partially in education with mixed results because the educational features are not really there. Now, there are educational packages out there that will address the configuration of routers and switches and on computer networks, but they're typically very static. They're not like these engineering products where they really act like the real product, the real live product, the dynamic configuration you're doing even in the simulated product. So what we're trying to do with the emulator is sort of marry the two. We take the educational feature, we take the engineering tool and add a lot of educational features, such as hints, questions, remedial text, learning. We intertwine the learning into the tool so that a student is not just lost in this very advanced environment. That's what Network Emulator is trying to do.
Right, and it does that very well. It both gives the student the visual aspect of seeing packets travel through the network, go through each device, and they see even the ability of they can click on a packet and see what its contents are and how it changes throughout the journey through an inner network. This is a product that, while I've used some other emulators, this is a product that, for teaching purposes, I wish I had when I was teaching. I'm retired now, but I still write textbooks, and I will plan on integrating this product into my textbooks and writing labs specifically for this LabHUB Network Emulator.
Yeah, well, I've seen some of these network simulators, and pretty impressive. And there's some pretty big boys that are putting these things out. Are you ready to take on these competitors?
one step at a time. We're releasing to the public in January our release 1.0. And it has the fundamental devices that you need for doing the kind of labs that educators and authors like Greg need. So we'll do that. And that's only a fraction of the features that the big boys have. But we're not really fighting them. They are serving engineers. We are serving engineering students. So it's still a different purpose. We're not trying to be a network emulator for simulating networks for commercial use. It's truly, we are limiting ourselves to the educational sector for this product.
Right. So if somebody is already an expert at routing and switching, they're not going to use this product to enhance their capabilities there. But for somebody starting out in networking, somebody that's never been introduced to networking, those other products really just don't have the educational features in them to make their learning experience, go smoothly. This has a lot of hints and a lot of feedback along the way so that students are less likely to get frustrated by having a blank slate and nothing to explain what they're supposed to do next. This, with the labs that are written and some of the feedback that they get when they make mistakes, helps educate them as well as give them experience on actual configuration of these types of devices.
Well, as an instructor, are you able to maybe speak to some of the specific?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can show some of the things that you can do with LabHUB Network Emulator. For example, we have a small network here, and we're going to have the student send a packet after they've configured devices from computer A to computer B. So they can create a packet, and you see that the packet sort of changed. So this is actually showing what the computer would do in real life. It would create what's called an ARP message. And you see at the top of the screen there that it's giving a log of everything that's happening as the packet travels through the network. And that's something that these other products just don't do. And if you wanted to, you can click a packet. Can't remember if we're going to show that here, but you can click a packet here to see the details. So this is what a packet actually looks like if you were to capture it with a packet capture program. And that's a great thing, a visual for students to see. And then when the packet gets to its final destination, the reply, you get a little check mark, it shows successful. And if you're doing a lab, you get a completion percentage. If you did everything right, you get 100%. So the student has immediate feedback whether they're doing it right, if they got all the steps correct, and whatnot. This feature here, we're going to, between each step, you can have a question in between the steps and essentially ask a question about what they just did. So this question's asking, why when computer A was sending a ping to computer B was an ARP packet created first? What's the purpose of that? And to get the MAC address of computer B is the correct answer. And you can, we didn't do it for this one, but you can have a detailed explanation for each question if that's what you choose to do.
So this seems like an amazing education tool. It really takes what's happening in a tiny amount of time and slows it way down, lets you see the whole process.
Exactly. And they see the packet move. They can click on the packet at any point in the journey and see, as you know, you're a networking person, packets change when they hit routers and other devices, and it's good for them to see that on every step of the way. Yeah. It's really a wonderful tool. I wish I had it when I was teaching, but I have it now. I still write textbooks, and so I can integrate this into my textbook labs, and I think it's really going to be a benefit for students to have this.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a couple of questions that actually came out of a focus group. It was the Cengage Computing Experience 2024. And an instructor wanted to know, can an instructor create their own questions and customize labs?
So what we're seeing here is the instructor view. And they can take existing labs and they can change them if they want. They can add to them, or they can create a brand new lab. And what that looks like, I'll just go and hit edit on a lab that already exists. So you can go into edit, and here's where you have the details, the title of the lab, the objective, the learning objective, sub-objectives if that's what you want to have, and then some sort of longer description. And if there's a book that this goes along with, then you can include the title of the book there as well, and the ISBN and so forth. And then here's where you fill out the details of the lab. You've got individual steps, which you can put a whole bunch of steps inside a step, because as you'll see, you can have multiple steps and have them do a whole separate set of tasks at each step. And in between the steps, we'll see later that you can create questions and show feedback. So this is where you create the initial lab. And then when you're ready to actually create the topology for the lab, you go into studio mode. All right, and so you get a blank slate, and you can create the correct state of the lab, and then the student starts off with the initial state, and you can make that whatever you want. You can have it be completely blank, and they have to build the network from scratch, like that lab that we were just looking at shows. Or you can have it partially configured so that you're only focusing on one particular task, like configuring a router or configuring the switch properly or something like that. So you can do really whatever you want. You can have the student start from scratch or start from an already configured topology. And then when you're ready to create questions, you can go into the grading and you can choose what items should be graded for that step, including connections. So if a box is checked, that's going to be graded. So in this lab, the only thing we were doing for step one is making sure that they created the proper connections. And then you can have a question after each step. And we call it a self-check question because they get immediate feedback. It's basically, do you understand what you just did and why? So it asks a question, and if you want, you can include a detailed explanation of that here, and the student will see that, including an audio transcript if you'd like.
So does the product come with an array of already made labs also?
Yes, yes.
It works any which way, right? It's all depending on what is the need of the moment is. If it's to create a supplement for an existing book of 10 chapters that want 2 labs per chapter, then we can create that. Or if it is an environment where an instructor teaches a class and wants to create for their own purposes a handful of labs, then they can do that, and it can be from a blank slate and everything in between. Wow. The tool is phenomenally flexible, and then by itself, it's really a question of what the purpose of the moment is, and then the tool will be able to adapt to that.
That's great. Well, let me get to another question. Are there any sort of hints or like a show me type option that are available for this?
So this is showing a lab that a student is starting to do. We want to send a ping packet from computer. So this is what happens when they are in the lab and they click the show me button up at the top here. So you can create a video, you don't have to, you can create a video showing them exactly the steps to do, and you can narrate over it. You can have written instructions or a table.
And instructors can do this themselves.
They can do it themselves and insert the video themselves.
Yeah, provide whatever level of
Computer
explanation.
A, computer C.
Yeah, so it's just going to
Right-click computer A.
So this is
click
showing them
Create
just
Ping
exactly
Packet.
what they're supposed to do.
Select computer C as the destination.
So that's the show me
Get
option.
an error
Now watch
message at the
this.
top saying cannot send packet from computer
So
A
that
to
gives them
computer
immediate
C.
feedback, okay, that there's a problem. It just doesn't, make the packet have an X over it saying you can't do that. Gives them a little bit of a hint, you can't send the packet. So there's a problem.
But it doesn't say why.
It doesn't
just
say
says-
why yet.
Right.
All right.
OK.
And then
Let's find out why. If you hover your mouse over the exclamation point, you'll see no default gateway configured.
right, so that's where the hint comes in.
Okay.
So we have show me options and hints like that show, and this is a feature that can be turned on or off. So you can give the hint or you cannot give the hint. And so if you hover your mouse over and you're in, learning mode, you can see what did I do wrong, and it tells you. And that's not just in the show me. That will happen in the live lab. So you don't, you only go to the show me when you're completely stuck and you don't know what to do next. But this will happen when you're doing the lab. If you make a mistake like this, if you ever see that little exclamation point, you can hover over it and get a little bit of explanation as what may be going wrong here.
Boy, I wish they had this when I was in the classroom.
Yeah, I know it's a great tool because you have to do less teaching, because the tool helps teach for you.
Let me ask you, Pierre, what do you see for the future of this product?
Of the emulator?
Yes, of the emulator.
Of the emulator. Well, so release 1.0 is for January. And we have hubs, switches, routers, computers, and servers in there. And that's a pretty good base plate to do at least introductory level labs, which most of the classes are introductory level, and that's really where they need this the most. The next step with the emulator is going to be to add some devices, different types of devices. And
Probably cybersecurity focused devices because
Yes.
that's
Focus-
where
exactly
the
right.
The industry needs a lot of learned students coming
Yes.
out that know how to do cybersecurity.
because right now, as release 1.0, it'll be a very good basic networking teaching tool. We want it to also be a good cybersecurity teaching tool, and that's to Greg's point. That's what we're looking for in release 2.0.
So the sky's the limit with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's software. Release 1.0, as release 7.0, God knows, right? But of course, we're doing this, getting feedback and making sure that we just don't develop what we think is cool, but what instructors really need. Sure. So by the time release 1.0 comes out and is out for a while, we're going to get a lot of feedback, and that's going to color 2.0 a lot. But to Greg's point, yes, 2.0 is going to be an extra focus on cybersecurity, absolutely.
There's one other feature education-wise that nobody else has that I've ever seen, and that is this network log. Remember I told you about at the top of the screen, it's kind of showing what's happening. Well, you can pull that down, and you'll see at the end, you can pull that down and see the whole progression of what happened during that exchange of getting that packet from computer A to computer B and back again. So that's another tool, that's another feature that you just don't see anywhere, where and you can even dive in. I didn't show that, but you can dive in and click on any of those lines and then see even more details of what's going on.
Yeah, and to that point, on unique features available only in the network emulator, the ability to go from network emulation to Windows simulator transparently from step to step. We can go the emulator step to a simulator step where we make them do stuff either in the Windows Server environment or in the CLI, all simulated, but we get them to go where we need them to go, so that can illustrate what they just did or illustrate what they're just gonna do, because then the next step again can just be an emulator again. So we can go from the one to the other seamlessly to the student. They won't even know they're in the simulator because it simulates rather well. They think they are in Windows.
And that way they're learning kind of the whole package at once. They're learning about these networking devices, but then, these are not real Windows devices, these little computer A, computer B, computer C on the screen, and they don't look like the Windows dialog. But if that's what you want them to learn as well, then you have the next step will show, go ahead and configure the IP address in a Windows environment or a Linux environment or whichever environment you want.
Right.
Well, it's exciting.
It really is. It really is.
We're having some fun with it.
I'll tell you, Pierre, I want you to send me access to this as soon as you can, because I'd love to play with it.
We will.
Okay.
We will.
And it's only going to get better. That's the thing is there's a great development team behind it. And I'm not one of the developers. I'm just sort of helping things along because I have the networking experience. But I can see that everything I've seen, every feature I've suggested, their development crew is putting it in and quickly. And so it's an awesome tool. It's ready for me to make labs right now.
And in terms of the development team, LabHUB is the platform that we use to deliver network emulator in. Now, LabHUB was made possible from a prior development when our chief technology officer came on board 2 years ago, Dimitri Leiner, and he has a heavy hand in this. And him and his team have this real capability to understand, to look at network concepts and understand how to develop that in a technology, in an educational environment for educational purposes. And it's the marrying of these skills like Greg's with a deep understanding on how packets travel around the network, and people like Dimitri that have that deep understanding of the development side of things, that we're able, with a rather small team, compared to many out there, to come up with something like this that is truly unique.
I've learned a lot today, and I'm pretty excited about this product. I hope everyone that tuned in is as excited as I am.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.